I call her up. I'm like, Mom, I want to take you to the Field Museum. What are you doing Sunday after church? She's like, oh, why? And I tell her. And she's like, oh, no, you should go by yourself. I don't want to go to that. I'm not really interested in fashion. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really want to. I wanted to take you. That's why I wanted to go.
Man.
So, you know.
Yeah. What did she say to that? If you told her that, like, I just wanted to hang out with you. I wanted to.
She's like,
share
hey, come
something.
over. I'm tired. Yeah.
I Am Consciously Curious, a podcast for those that are searching for meaning and fulfillment in their lives. My name is Victor Chan, and I'm on a mission to find out why people do what they do. I've interviewed white-collar to blue-collar, entrepreneurs to passion projects, and life is just too short to not produce meaningful work. Thanks for tuning in. We're live, March 25th. Katie Chung, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I gotta say, like, we were talking off air before we started recording of how I came upon your work, and I'll just attribute it to Steph Krim from Good Things Vending and the collaborative nature of the vending machines, as well as like as far as what goes in the machine, as well as the artists that get to paint the machines. Mm-hmm. But that being said, like a deeper dive into your work, I think I really appreciated your exploration of your Asian American experience. I don't think I met someone that grew up in a laundromat setting, and I appreciated what you made out of that, the art that came out of that, and I think I'm curious what your relationship is with your parents, and then oh my God, and then your exploration of Korea, and coming to terms with that side of you that I think you said you felt shame at one point.
Oh, yeah, so much shame.
Oh, okay. That's so, yeah. Like, so I don't know. We can start there, like in the sense of, I think in high school and maybe even before high school, something as simple as the lunch you bring, mm-hmm. and just wanting to fit in, and not that I was like the token Asian, student at that school, but I felt like an outlier. If my mom like packed me, rice, versus a ham sandwich. Mm-hmm. And I would beg for Lunchables and all that other stuff. And
Lunchables.
And yeah, it's just like, I guess, at what point did you, I wonder if this is going ahead a little bit, but like at what point did you realize this was a part of you that you wanted to uncover or go deeper in, and maybe pump the brakes on the shame and just like, well, why do I feel shameful about that part of me?
It really wasn't until like officially I was in a program with the Hyde Park Art Center. It's called the Center Program. Okay. It's kind of like an interim, like if you're thinking about going to grad school for art, you would enter one of these types of programs. It's very diverse, like 20 groups of art, or a group of 20 artists, all different ages, all different races. And it had me questioning, like, what am I making? What is my story? Mm-hmm. And of course, I started grabbing materials from my mom's shop, and thinking about, like, how come every time I talk about where my parents work, there's like shame, even though I know I should be proud, like, oh my God, because we are kind of at the cusp, 2019, before the pandemic, of like, before like Black Lives Matter, where all this critical race theory words are kind of like regularly used, especially on the internet. But I was also just in my later 20s, and I was tired of feeling shitty about myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew that I should be really proud, and I'm very blessed. Oh yeah. I didn't grow up rich, but I never grew up hungry. Yeah. I never grew up needing anything. I had everything I needed. But I think just the older you get, you like meet all different types of people, and you realize like what you have is really amazing. Mm-hmm. And it just took a couple years to like get into that work. And figure out like, why am I making it? And really, like, that type of work isn't like a money maker. Mm-mm. The big profit for me is like, I'm closer to my family, I'm closer to myself, I'm closer to my culture, and overall I'm just like comfortable with who I am. I'm like, I love I love being like, yeah, I'm a dry cleaner kid. Before I used to be like, yeah, my parents were gonna,
Did you ever meet another dry cleaner kid?
Yeah, actually, ever since I've been putting this work out, it's kind of like,
they all kind of come out.
Yeah, one I'll mention. She's also a Chicago, I'll say a superstar. She's in the acting and comedy scene. She doesn't know me personally, but I listen to her podcast. To Kim's One Pod, Unji Kim. I know you are a dry cleaner kid. But we were on the same panel once. So I was like in the same room with her one time. Wow. And I remember I was in my dry cleaning, like hanbok, it's a Korean garment, standing there thinking like, your parents did this too.
Wait, so, but you didn't have a conversation from that?
We kind of talked, but it was kind of like, it was like a quick, like everyone had, a couple moments on stage and then,
Yeah, I would have chatted up after that. I mean, I would have made the time. Like,
yeah, I think there was just other comedians in the room, and I was kind of like the artist. I was like, I don't really know. I can't really relate sometimes. But yeah, there's been other people. There's another artist, actually, fine artist named Aram Han Cifuentes. She doesn't make work about this upbringing, but I know her parents had a dry cleaner, but out in California.
Okay.
And love her work, very much like in the activism scene. And so.
Have you had these conversations with your parents about their immigration journey and if they were navigating between potential options of a line of work?
Yeah, that is like kind of the baseline of all the work has been like, how do I talk to my parents?
Right.
All my life they've been working 12 hours a day, 6 hours or 6 days a week. And it's been so much of like, tell me something. And it's like, I'm busy. Oh my God, leave me alone. But there was one time, like before I started to make this work, I asked my mom to just like sit down and write because she like, she sometimes brags. She's like, I was smart when, I was younger in school and like say like, I was such a good writer and like a good speaker. And so I told her like, can you just write your story for me? Like, I don't care how the English is, just like write it.
Yeah.
And I still have those papers. It's just like a couple
You're gonna
loose
cherish
leaves.
that forever.
Oh my God. It's
You're
literally
gonna cherish that forever.
Yeah.
My wife Justine's dad, his mom, so Justine's Lola, made a book, like transcribed and wrote down reflections and transcribed it into digital print and printed it. And she's no longer with us, but to be able to read that and her account of how things all played out it makes me so happy to hear how attentive she was to, like, she kept a pulse on the family the entire time. And that's something I'm trying to do with this equipment. So just not in written form, but I was telling you earlier, like kind of like similar to a podcast takeover, but more privately, like what if you did this with your mom? Right? So like something like that. And then I would put it on a thumb drive and then you could keep it and pass it down.
Well, interesting enough, a curator I worked with who actually has a background in film suggested start recording.
Yeah.
I think when I met her, her mom actually had recently passed away. So she was seeing me kind of go through my process of making work about my family and started suggesting like, hey, when you're at a family gathering or something, just like record, And I every now and then I will. I'm glad she mentioned when she did because our families, like all my relatives that do live out like a little bit more on the outskirts of Chicago, we don't meet up so much anymore, ever since my grandma had passed away.
So grandma was the glue? Yeah,
everybody does everything for her and I get it. But also everybody's just getting older. It's hard to drive over to the city or out to the suburbs and,
I mentioned that at our wedding, that weddings and funerals are pretty much the main two times where this many people come together.
Yeah, exactly.
Sadly.
Yeah, so it's like every now and then, I think there's a couple random recordings of just my aunts and uncles and my mom, like just, chatting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like need that.
Yeah. So after your mom wrote down some of the stuff, like did that open up a can of worms at all after that?
Definitely.
Okay.
I think everything was in order. It wasn't kind of just like a sentence here and sentence there. And then after that, I started actually sitting in my mother's shop and like making some of the work there. And I realized that was kind of like the key to unlocking the stories is like sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Like kind of like be patient, and someday she wants to chat and tell me about stuff, you know, because she understands now, oh, okay, you're interested in this. Like you want me to talk. And it is literally like a 5-year process, feels like.
I wonder what changed though. You know, like that desire doesn't change. Like that desire was there from the very beginning. And I wonder what made her feel comfortable enough, or that realization that like that, you know, like that I want to talk, that you actually want to hear it.
I think making the work when I had the exhibition, it was a group show, and I showed them, I had sewn all these tags together, and me actively always being like, don't throw that away, save it for, throw it in this bucket.
Cultural Center, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Killer photos, yeah.
They just realized like, she cares, you know? And I'm like, I'm willing to listen. I don't want to talk over you. I don't want to, I'll give you that space.
Yeah.
There was also a long time, I think this happens with everyone. You realize your parents are just people.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not like trying to put the label of like, you are my mother. I'm thinking of it as like, okay, when you were a kid, you were just like a kid, you know? And really you're just like.
They might even forget that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also, you know, with her business, like things kind of simmered down. Like she kind of got a handle on things. She has her clientele, and like she has space to talk and think. She told me like the first few years of being here, like she had like no other thought. She had not consumed any sort of media, movie, books, whatever. It was just work.
Sure.
And that does something to your brain, you know? My mother is like a very smart woman, and it's kind of really sad for me to think like you just numbed out for a while.
Yeah, that sacrifice, right, for the next generation.
Ooh, that sacrifice.
Yeah, that sacrifice. In a way, it places, I don't know if guilt is the right word, but a responsibility on our generation or the next generation to take care of them, and to ensure that their sacrifice isn't in vain.
Yeah, it's heavy. I listened to a lot of podcasts. There's one specific to Korean American mental health, and they talked about how when you're Korean American, you're in this weird middle zone of like, you know, we're here in America. It's very individualistic, independent thinking. But our parents or the generation before us are very much coming from like Confucian ideals. Everything is group oriented. Everything is for
the greater good.
It's a collective mindset. And so even though I've never been to Korea since last year, that was my first time. Like I grew up with that type of mentality and that type of, that's what was like my household, you know? It's like the gesture of like when you go to someone's house, you bring like the box of fruit, you know? So yeah, I think about that a lot. I'm not so much like angry at that anymore. It's nice to like be able to have words for it, and just like separate it from my feelings.
That's so interesting. Like you probably always had the subconscious notion of this group mentality, for the greater good, juxtaposed with that baseline level of shame, just based on where your parents worked, is in the sense of like working at a laundromat is beneath the average type of work?
To me, the shame actually kicked in. So I went to public school, Walt Disney, over like on Irving, and
I didn't know there was a school name. Is it still around? Walt Disney?
It is. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's like a grade school, public grade school over on Irving and by the lake. So I went there until like second grade, and then my mom did everything she could to pull my brother and me out to go to private school.
Wow.
So I went to this Catholic school called Mount Carmel Academy.
Oh, okay.
Similar area. And I was in a much smaller group of people. You know, my class was like 25 instead of like,
wow.
You know, like, I don't know, it was like hundreds of kids in one grade. We were in a pod, not class. And it was much more affluent families, you know?
Yeah.
And definitely more white.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like the Asian kid in the school.
Sure.
I think one more, and her name was Yao Yao, which is like, oh my God, wow, I'm Katie and there's Yao Yao. So I'm like, I'm the Korean and there's Chinese. And at that time it was like, some people didn't even know what Korean was. It was like one girl that was like, my grandpa fought in the Korean War. So, and now we got like K-pop, K-beauty, KKK, everything.
Yeah.
Well, not that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So was there ever, and I I don't know if it occurs in maybe private school or if private school isn't immune to this, but was there any kind of bullying at all?
This is funny. I will say that I was really defensive growing up, so I think I became the bully.
No shit.
Yeah, I'll admit it. I'm sorry, guys, if I was really mean to you. It was because I was self-conscious.
How would it come off? You know,
my last name is Chung.
Yeah.
We got the Ching, we got the Chung, right?
Yeah.
And I think, but also sometimes it was backhanded, being like, "Oh, you're so pretty for an Asian girl," and for me, it was like, "Oh my God, thank you!" Like, cool, I'm the pretty Asian girl, and but I grew up in the '90s. Like, it's just we had Lucy Liu, that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
and then later on, Margaret Cho, but she was not like a conventional, beautiful like Asian American like identity. It was just she was funny.
It's wild. At that time, were you aware of how certain Asian countries would try to assimilate to the Western culture as far as beauty standards go?
Yes. My cousins would call me like the banana or the Twinkie. I'll say there's 3 girls that are in the generation of cousins.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest, and then there's one that's one older. I feel like she's the in-betweener. But she grew up with the grandma, so she's like automatically kind of Korean,
Okay.
And then there's like my older cousin who's like Unni. She could just go to Korea and be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Like no one would be like, you came here from the States. All wonderful people, but I grew up in the city. I didn't grow up in, they're all from Niles, Skokie area.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like there is a lot more Asian presence there. And I also was going to school where it was prevalently white, and my mom was like, she spoiled me. Like I got to play basketball. I got to play volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
I did all the American girl stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So there was that. I wouldn't say shame, but just like, when you're young, you tease. And I'm really trying lately not to like look back at my past and like villainize anybody.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm just trying to take ownership of like what I had control over and the types of behaviors that I don't want to carry on anymore.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow. So at what point did you start gaining an appreciation for the amount of work that your parents did to put you through private school? Was it 20s or?
Yeah, probably 20s.
Yeah.
It was like once I graduated college, I never made work about my identity in college. I wasn't there yet, maturity-wise. I also didn't have that type of vocabulary that wasn't really normal, like regularly used. And I've always been grateful, because I grew up like waiting in the back of my mom's shop. Like I saw the physical work that it took to like have every single dollar in our bank account.
Yeah.
I was there, and so I knew. I was like very grateful, and in that way I was also a very quiet kid at home that just got her homework done. I had good grades all of my life. I also went to college on a full ride. I didn't want to like be a burden ever. I was like
rock the boat or anything.
I was like, cool, I got this. My brother, I have an older brother. He's kind of a wild card, so he was always getting in trouble and stuff, doing his thing. So I think I just saw them go through so much stress, and I was like, cool, I got this, guys. Don't worry, I'm gonna like raise myself. Just like leave me with a TV, And there's parts of me that I feel like I really struggle with being grown up like that, whatever. But
like now you struggle with that?
Yeah, like recently I am really fighting being a people pleaser. I think that kind of stems from like that type of upbringing.
Okay.
Just trying to like not crack any eggshells, just like cool, I got this.
I see.
It comes in my favor sometimes, but sometimes it's like, oh my God, I need boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, and professionally, you've probably come to that point just from the scale of the work that you've done recently. From an outsider's perspective, when you get to that scale, I think you're at a point where you can start saying no to certain projects that you don't feel 100% aligned with.
Yes, I can, and it is truly a blessing. Not all the time. I really do try to give space for everyone that approaches me.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's someone that spent time on my website, like giving me time and actually reached out. So I try, but sometimes it's just like I don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And maybe no is not never, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So when you continued talking with your mom, did they say that they had options when they came, or like how does one land in a laundromat? You know, like was it theirs, or like how does that operate?
It was actually my oldest uncle who actually is an in-law, like the oldest aunt and uncle of my generation, or my aunts and uncles.
Okay, of your parents' generation.
They came here first, and he kind of came from a little bit of money, like had investment money, and was able to have that business, and was able to bring the rest of my family over, and they work for that business. My mom was able to convince him, like, can you co-sign? I want my own business. And she wanted to specialize, especially in like the alterations, which is, I think, really set her aside. And, you know, she's on a pretty affluent block over in Boys Town, like Roscoe and Broadway. And she's been there over 30 years. I've seen so many businesses just come and go. And she's solid. Yeah. She's like, sometimes she's like, I don't want to do this work. She's, so I'm very proud of that. And yeah, she's just a really consistent, hardworking woman and honest.
Okay. So, man, so they didn't really have did they have options?
No, it was.
They kind of just were grateful for whatever opportunities came their way.
It was kind of like, from what I understand, it's kind of like a mirage. It's a lot. My grandpa on my mother's side he's kind of like the unofficial mayor of this small town. I'll say village, really. Yeongam. It's like in the south, in South Korea. And like he built schools, he built an irrigation system. He was the man, you know. He did a lot of work. But during, you know, it's weird because I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm like an expert in Korean history, but when communism was like kind of trying to come into Korea, they were targeting people like my grandpa. So I think he really wanted to get his kids out of there, but also knew, you know, Korea was a really poor country. They were affluent because they could read and they had land. And so it was like, let's get our kids out of here. He married off his daughters, and, you know, one by one, they started coming over here just because there was no opportunity there.
Sure.
It's kind of weird because they're doing really well now. But
you mean South Korea, or like you know, the village and the town over there?
Actually, the village, when I did go, actually is kind of somewhat the same. But Korea as a whole, I would say, like South Korea's, their economy really boomed. But I think like politically, he knew that it was time to get away, and he wanted more for his kids. Specifically, he was huge on education. But unfortunately, it was like they got stuck with the dry cleaner business. And
I wonder if you had that conversation, like you just keep tracing it back to like your uncle, and like, you know, how does one land, and how do stereotypes become stereotypes? Like how does one land in a laundromat business? Like I wonder if they considered anything else at the time.
I think really there's a couple businesses like laundromats where it's like you don't have to be super proficient in English. Just put in the hours and put in the time and be consistent, and you can do this. I feel like any sort of like labor intensive jobs are pretty approachable for immigrants. And you know what? I have to ask specifically why. That's a good one.
A friend, restaurateur Jason Chan, grew up in the hospitality industry because his parents opened up restaurants when they immigrated here. After saving up all their tips and working at other restaurants, they opened several of their own concepts. And food is like, it transcends language barriers.
No, you just got to make good food and keep serving it, like good service and good food, and the people will come. But also, their location, there's a lot of factors, but I think for me, it's like consistency and hard work and American dream, you know.
I'm interested. I'm gonna talk with is his name Andy Lim? Andy Lim from Perilla.
Okay.
Soon. I'm curious. I have no idea what his backstory is, but I unfortunately don't have too many Korean American friends. And I wonder how it differs from the overall Asian American experience. I'm Chinese American, and to be honest, I didn't know I was Chinese until I was like mid-20s.
Really?
When I took a DNA test. My parents are from Burma, from Myanmar, and they spoke Burmese, and it wasn't until I took a DNA test and it came back 100% Chinese.
Oh, interesting.
I guess I never had the curiosity to ask them their lineage and their grandparents, and but their grandparents immigrated from China and into Burma, so it kind of makes sense. But they don't speak Chinese. My parents don't speak Chinese, so never would have thought. And I relate in the sense of like it does feel like pulling teeth at times, like trying to get these answers out of them. And you wonder why. It's like I don't want these stories to die with them.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember, like, they have their own traumas too.
Yeah.
You're like asking them to, like, think about it as like a really hoarded up attic. You can't just randomly ask someone, like, and they might have a full day's schedule of stuff they actually want to do, and then you're like, can you like get that one box from the attic, please? That tiny little box that's in the corner, like blocked by all the other boxes.
You're so right. Yeah,
so I'm just trying to be mindful. This is also, it's like, you know, mental health awareness is like so much more talked about now, and I'm like, again, like my parents are just people that went through a really hard time at one point, and now they're like chilling, and right when they're chilling, I'm like, can we go back and talk about that really hard part? And they're like, dang, I just want to chill, you know. So yeah, just be patient, but I hope they give you those stories.
Yeah, you know what? Like now that I asked a previous guest, Danielle from Monsoon Pottery, if she needs a fundamental joy in everything that she does, and she says no, because when she let's say making like 250 bowls or mugs after maybe the 50th, you've created a system, and you can kind of like you're in autopilot mode. But that system frees up your mental bandwidth to maybe think about the next project, or just think about anything else you want to think about while continuing to maintain a consistent quality. So that being said, I wonder if, you know, your mom been doing this so long that, you know, she has the mental freedom to think about other things.
Yeah, no, she's actually phrased it exactly like that.
Oh.
Like in Korean, she'll be like sometimes there's just like nothing in my head. It's just empty. I'm so tired. It's just empty. There's nothing, you know? And I am like, wow, I'm so privileged. I don't even know what that's like. I've been tired, but just to be completely like whoosh, in your head.
Yeah. In a way though, so as an empty vessel, I wonder what she'd like to fill it with.
I wonder too. But, you know, she's getting she is retirement age, but she enjoys working.
Yeah.
I think she understands that's her routine. She's really proud of her business and like her relationships with her customers. And she's still healthy and wants to work. But I imagine like her retirement is like she's taking piano lessons and she's like reading her books and she's like going to the museums.
We want these things for them, and I wonder if they want it for themselves.
It's funny. I'm gonna let her just do her. Because the other day I tried to ask her. I tried to take her on a date at the Field Museum.
Oh wow!
There's a really interesting fashion exhibition, African fashion exhibition. I just thought, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
I call her up. I'm like, Mom, I want to take you to the Field Museum. What are you doing Sunday after church? She's like, oh, why? And I tell her, and she's like, oh no, you should go by yourself. I don't want to go to that. I'm not really interested in fashion. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really want to. I wanted to take you. That's why I wanted to go. Man. So, you know.
Yeah. What did she say to that? If you told her that, like, I just wanted to hang out with you. I wanted to.
She's like, hey, come over. I'm tired. Yeah. But I'm getting better at just like, instead of this idea of who they're gonna be and how
and what an ideal life could look like.
Or like what rest is to them.
Yeah.
I leave it alone.
I think I finally gotten to that point.
Did you? Because I'm still trying.
I think I did.
How did you get there?
So my dad is like, I think a year into retirement, and he loves stocks. And like he's on his computer and he's just researching and analyzing and looking at all the numbers. And to me, I'm like, why aren't you traveling? Why aren't you being outside or just doing whatever? And when I say do whatever you want to do, I pause in my tracks. I'm like, he is doing whatever he wants to do. And it's not, despite it not matching your ideal retirement for him. Because like, you know, you acknowledge the sacrifice that they did for you. And I acknowledge that they sacrificed their life in order for us to have a great life. And I tell them, I'm like, your kiddos are grown. You don't have to worry about us anymore. So
they'll always worry. Sorry.
I know. Yeah, they you're right. No, you're right. They will. But yeah, I'm just like, we're not your responsibility anymore in that sense. Like, I'll always be your son, but what do you want to do? And I don't know if they had the luxury or privilege to explore that. So maybe they don't, I don't know.
Yeah.
You come back to like, they're living this life for the first time too. So it's like, why don't they want to live it?
Yeah. That's what you want for you.
You're so right. I know, right? It took a very long, like when I say a very long time, maybe a year and a half of me like wrestling with that. I was like, why aren't you doing more? Like, oh, they're doing what they want to do.
No, it takes a long time for me to just tell myself, leave them alone. Like, let them do their thing. And then when they need help with setting up that new tech, just come over and help them and then leave them alone.
Yeah.
But I think every now and then it's good to just suggest things. And if they reject them, like my mom in the Field Museum, move on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What were your curiosities in Mount Carmel in high school that led to whatever you studied in college?
I've always been interested in art. I think I was always that girl in school that was like, oh my God, you can really draw. And I'm very much like technical, hand skill oriented. I am like a very physical person. I love building things. I love making things. I love figuring out a process. And I think when you grow up and people are always like, oh, you're so good at art, you just kind of take on that identity as an artist.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you consider anything else when you were considering college?
No,
Yeah.
It started with, I was in Marwin organization. It's a awesome after school program that gives free art classes to CPS and homeschool kids in Chicago.
Okay.
And there I met this amazing woman named Sarah Atlas. One of my first classes was a college and career like counseling class.
Wow.
So I learned how to write my paper for, my application. I learned how to apply for FAFSA. And I think I was just one of the few students that like showed like responsibility. Like I actually showed up to class. It's a free after school class. So a lot of times, the first week, second week students show up and then everyone trickles out because everyone wants to hang or do other stuff after school, which is fine. But I was the one that kind of stuck around and was like, I need to figure this out. Like, you need to help me because no one else is going to tell me. And she actually hooked me up with a scholarship through another administration. Like I had met, SAIC people that were kind of scouting out city kids like me, like who want to go to this school that doesn't actually have a lot of Chicago resident students in the population. Wow, there's like so much story to this actually. And so that scholarship ended up turning into a full ride, which I can't deny that. And it's a prestigious school. So I automatically was like, this is the route, And my first year there, I studied graphic design.
Okay.
But then I got into printmaking. Graphic design made me really sleepy, staring at a screen. There's things about graphic design I really love and I still use.
The number of opportunities that come from a background in graphic design. You can help build any brand you want.
I could. I feel like I missed that boat, but it's okay. There was things that happened. I held on to that idea of like becoming a full-time graphic designer a long time ago. I just realized like, I'm not going to be good at this unless I want to do it.
Sure.
And other opportunities were just coming. But it's something I very much use like in my mural practice. Even in the like textile based sculpture work. And then, from there it's just,
What was it about printmaking?
The physicalness.
Yeah.
Someone saw me drawing.
It's kind of like a trade.
Yeah. I just loved like working the press. I loved like learning about like copper plates versus like wood printing and just it was a nice way to kind of like reinvent drawing for me.
Interesting. Was there a subcategory within that, whether it's like magazines or hardcover, like a certain modality within printmaking?
This was actually like old school like fine arts printing, so we're talking about like etching on copper plates. We're talking about lithography on like lithograph stones. We're talking about like wood block printing, literally carving out wood, or linoleum. Letterpress printing also, I feel like kind of the way they used to print newspapers back in the day. Yeah. I just loved each process of printing is such a different approach to drawing, and it's I feel like it's like a marriage of art and science that's like really beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't really do it much right now, but that was kind of like my first time in art school where I was like, whoa, something different, something kind of to explore.
There's an artisanal aspect to it, in the sense like when you were collecting those like handwritten tags from the laundromat, and then I don't know if you saw the digital aspect coming, but multiple layers of artisanality. If I don't know if I made that up, but like to that, it's like it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah, I think something about printmaking also that was great was like I can love one drawing that I made, but there's only one. But if I can figure out how to translate into a print, it's like the closest to reproducing that drawing without like with my hand still there.
Yeah.
And I can control how many is in that edition, whether it's 5, 10, or 50. And I think I also just love like the process of it. It was like I don't know, depending on the thing. For me, etching really vibed with me during college. I love like putting the copper plate in the acid bath and figuring out like the timing for like how deep each line will come out and like wiping the plate. And
I gotta look this up.
It was just fun, you know?
Do you feel like it's a lost art?
I think there's like, no. I think Chicago also has a really strong printmaking community, but I'll say it's niche.
Sure.
Yeah.
What were some doors that could potentially open up with a background in printmaking?
Well, there's like printmaking shops. I think with an understanding of lithograph printing, for example, this is kind of like the beginning of Xerox. So if you kind of understand like the OG, you go to these larger print factories, or I don't know what to call them, presses. And I think you just get an idea of like how to work that machine a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, I think high quality printing as well. Like they're being printed on these like old school machines. It's there's a lot of avenues.
Yeah.
Again, I want a different avenue. It was just like it was a part of my life. And
so, where was the next fork in the road for you?
From college?
Was it during college or after college when you?
It was definitely after college. Was a mix. When you get spit out of art school and you don't have like a very specific idea.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, it's like I didn't go the full-time job route. I did a lot of things in graphic design and printmaking.
Okay. What would have been a full-time job?
Definitely like starting off as a junior graphic designer and then moving up, like an ad agency.
Okay.
If I had gone to like work for a printing press, just like operating, even like screen printing businesses.
Sure.
Whether it's on paper or fabric.
Yeah.
Or even just like digital press operators, things like that. So yeah, if you're interested in art jobs, I just named a couple.
Yeah. So was that by choice then? Like just like I'm not feeling any of these?
Honestly, I got rejected. I was like putting a lot of cards out there, and sometimes I got an internship and I thought it would lead to something, and it was like, okay, this is over. And then art handling actually came into my life, which I feel like is very popular right now.
What is that, like at a museum or?
It's for museums, it's for galleries, it could be for private collections, it can just anything around like installing, deinstalling, or even like the movement of art.
Sure.
This was kind of like right now I see like memes of art handling, you know what I mean?
No, I don't follow those pages. Tell me though.
I think if you're like in the art world, you'll like, it's like a LOL type of stuff. But back in the day, I'll say, I started working for a fine arts gallery and as an art handler, and like I was one of the few women that was doing it. It's mostly like guys that are, I don't know, putting up art and like opening up crates, closing them, and
it's just because of the sheer labor of it, or
it's like very much laborious? Like it's like warehouse. Or it's funny because there's such a difference between the environments. It's like you're in a warehouse. The warehouse was not too far from here actually.
Okay.
And then you're in like a white wall gallery.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So I really also enjoyed like learning about like the physical labor that goes into actually putting up
that makes
show.
Sense. Yeah. Okay.
And it is a real like line of work.
Okay.
And I did it for a couple of years. It was also something that I could do freelance, so I could continue to do things like these programs, like the Center program, or I had one residency at Chicago Artists Coalition that was really great. I think for me, after I graduated school, I was very I knew it was going to be an unknown path. So I just told myself, work around artists, be around artists, be around art.
Yeah.
And just like absorb everything you can.
That's smart. Yeah. Were there any concerns from your parents?
Oh, tons.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Honestly, still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They came here and they clean and fix the clothes of people with secure jobs, with the 401ks and the, what they know. And that's what they see as successful. And I am doing different stuff,
Yeah.
But some days are good, some days are bad, just like anything else. It's just like...
Well, do you feel like this is something that you have to just show them rather than tell them? They're gonna see it one day if they haven't already, that this line of work can be safe, secure, and successful.
I think I just have to let it go, and I have to understand this is my life. Like like how I can't choose what rest looks like for them, I have to live my own life. And there are days where my mom understands that and leaves me alone. But then there are days, I don't know what she dreamt about or something, how she woke up and she's like, "You need to get a job. When are you gonna get a job?" And I'm like, I have like a couple of contracts I'm working on right now. I can't just like not honor them. But I'm just patient with them instead of getting bratty and being like, "Oh my God, like I'm fine,"
To see, what about like the murals around the city, whether it's the Thompson Center or 360 Chicago? That's got to be super validating.
It's validating.
You're walking on the freaking mural.
It's validating in the moment when we're celebrating.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I'll just say at my level of being a professional artist, there's still highs and lows.
Yeah.
And they see when it's low too, and
Sure.
they're like,
They're worried,
why aren't you like getting like, why don't you have a boss? Or I don't know.
Isn't that interesting though? Because they don't have a boss.
Yeah.
That's
I just like, I don't want to waste any more energy on that. I can't fight. I just have to accept like, yeah, they are my parents. They're going to worry about me all the time.
So real.
And I get it. They're getting older and they see me doing art stuff, and that's whatever.
To not feel responsible for fixing things anymore.
Yeah.
Or
it's
just
like
changing
Google and
viewpoints.
Facebook is not enough. Oh my God. Dang. Guess I have to go to Harvard.
Back to med school.
No, whatever. But there's times where they're really proud. And then there's times where they're like really confused, And that's just it.
Confused, but do they have the curiosity to ask? Like, tell me more. Like, tell me more about this line. Like, what did you do? What amount of effort went into this? Like you'll have like time lapses of your murals on it. I don't know. Is that not enough? Like to see, and sometimes you've done that all like walls by yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. Victor, do you want to talk to them? I'll pull them up right now. I'll call them. Tell them all the good stuff. I'm kidding. No, it's not all like they're ragging on me. Sometimes my mom's like, "Oh, I love to brag to my church friends about what you did," and
it'd be like that, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like that to their friends, but not to your face.
Yeah. Sometimes to my face, they love me and they're proud of me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I did chose a funny line of work, and I have to accept that it's not just them. It comes from all over the world, and I just have to be okay with my decisions and not be worried about.
Well, I'm sure they were happy about the full ride, despite the pushback of like, why art school?
I'm telling you, they're always like, "Oh, awesome! Yeah. Wait, what? There's no job? Wait, awesome! Wait, why don't you have a job? Wait, that's amazing! Wait, but when are you gonna get a job?" That's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then every time I have had a job, they're like, "Why isn't it full time?" And then every time I tell them, I'm like, "Because the salary is this," and then they're like, "That's not enough."
Yeah.
One time they straight up told me, someone that offered me, they had given me an offer. I was like, "Do you want me to go to that?" And she goes, "No, he doesn't have any character."
Oh, so now they care about it.
Exactly. And I'm like, "Don't worry." So, but they're going to worry. Just like, I don't know. My mom and dad are the least of my worries of like worrying about me. I'm lucky. That comes from a place of love. For me as an artist, I've worked really hard to just like, there's a funny thing that happens when you stand there and someone's like, "What do you do?" And you're like, "I'm an artist." And they look at you like, "So are you poor?" They do. And I just have to, like, I've practiced a lot, just like saying that confidently and just allowing whatever they think about me. That's
just roll off your shoulder.
Yeah. And I know, like, I need to lead that conversation. I gotta get work done.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just a part of it, you know. If I don't say like a very practical sort of job, like people do look at me like, "How are you doing this?"
I know it's a tricky. Yeah, it's like small talk sucks like sometimes, and it's like let's get to the juicy part.
Yeah. Or my favorite, actually, I'll just say, people should prepare. Oh, I'm an artist. Oh, so you're still in school? That's a big one.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, school life.
Yeah. But it just is what it is, you know.
So yeah, you were always doing something for yourself, despite the ephemeral nature of like the picking up odd jobs here and there. So like you did art handling for a couple years, but you always did something for yourself.
Yes, I've always made my own work. I've always held like a internship or volunteer opportunity that kind of gives me access to like a studio space.
Okay.
I don't know. I just put myself out there. We're in Chicago. There's so many communities. There's so many places to get your foot into and learn something from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also get your name out there and let people know you're a professional artist and you're like here to make work.
Was there some level of like fake it till you make it, or just I don't know, or I don't know. Is that what, maybe that might not be the right term to it, but a point where you don't feel like a professional yet, you know?
I think for a long time I struggled with not like being represented by a gallery, kind of like the more traditional route. But ever since I've been getting the mural gigs, it's like I am able to financially sustain myself and like be busy with my own work, which is great. I feel like I found my own pathway of like how to do this.
Yeah.
But also at the end of the day, like you just have to make the work. Regardless of like who you're getting hired by or the types of jobs you get, like you have to have a portfolio. You have to have a body of work. You have to have a voice. And that's big. I feel like in this tech age, we can get so lost in like the marketing and the branding and all this stuff. And then it's like, okay, but what do you make? And it's like, oh, let me show you like my mood board. And it's like, I want to see like the work.
Yeah.
What is...
So if one isn't getting galleries, I mean, it's easier. I feel like is it easier than ever due to social media to just showcase your work?
It definitely spread the word and like get yourself out there. But I don't think it's easy in terms of just like, just because you open up a social media with your art doesn't guarantee anything.
Sure.
And I'll say all of my like biggest opportunities didn't come from that. That was just kind of an extra place I can reference.
Yeah.
Hey, you can follow this, and then.
So is it being getting your foot in the door in a gallery and then being discovered through galleries?
That's one route.
Okay.
For me, it was like I put in my time with a lot of different communities and spaces.
Okay.
And from there, it's like they're watching me, and not watching me, but you know, there's
how you operate and how you're participating.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, people are watching me do murals in the city.
That's
but
interesting.
Also,
do you think people? I think the answer is yes, but like want to work with not just a good artist, but someone that like values more than just the art. I guess like the mission and the vision and the narrative and what you're trying to share through the art. Like the art is a vessel.
Do you mean like how I choose to work with people?
How in general, I wonder if like you've felt that like, and it could be how you operate as well, but like how others have wanted to work with you. Is it because of like who you are as a person?
I will say that's a big part of it, actually.
Yeah, right.
One, I'll say, regardless of what you make, I have a strong style, whether it's my illustration or my sculptures. It's very clear what my story is or what it's going to look like. So in that way, especially with working with larger companies, you're not just talking to one person. It's getting approved by a whole team. It's a board or something, you know, and it has to fit into their politics.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that game of kind of just like, how do I take my style and like make it feasible to like a larger audience and not.
That's that's a tricky thing to navigate.
It is, and I kind of love that, like,
you love
that problem
that.
solving.
Yeah. I mean, you get to flex the creative muscle in that sense. But do you have to compromise any part of yourself?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm also someone, I think, especially with my illustration, I specifically draw things so they are approachable to any sort of viewer. You don't need an art history background. You don't need to even know I'm Korean American. You don't even know you have to know I'm a woman. When I make illustrations that are meant to be murals, it's specifically like I'm catering to that space.
Okay.
I love that opportunity to like dress up a room and make it inviting and make people like curious and like imagine and just like have fun and not feel like.
So it's not always about you. Your murals definitely have a brand.
Oh, like, it is like night and day for me. Like the sculptures are like me.
Okay.
And then the murals are like nobody knows me. I'm just like.
But it's like it's distinct.
It's distinct.
But yeah. You don't get like a Korean American flair from it.
Yeah, I think I purposely do it that way.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think with the amount of personal narrative I do with the other side of my practice, it's kind of a relief to have the skill set to make imagery that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the public. I'm thinking about mass-produced images. I'm thinking about like what's approachable. Like what would you see that's like out on the wall and you're like, oh, that's fun. Or like just makes me feel light and bright and invited.
Right. Right. Huh.
I think especially growing as a child of immigrants, I am very much always thinking about how people with no understanding of art history look at art. I'm very interested in those types of reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder about that with fine dining a lot in the sense of what is the prerequisite vocabulary one needs to fully appreciate what they're consuming. So that could be consuming visually as in art or visual like or ingesting as in food. So like for example, caviar or an omakase sushi experience or foie gras or fancy wine. Do you even know what you're consuming? Like, can you put words to it? Have you had the prerequisite foundational food that allows you to fully appreciate what you're currently consuming? And so similar to art, it's like I like your take on it because it does. There's this. I don't know if mass appeal is the right word, but there's this approachability to it. Which I deeply appreciate, but also like I wonder what is the prerequisite vocab that one needs to fully appreciate it, unless you don't care about that, unless like it is what it is. It's like it's simple enough, it's bright, these are certain objects and symbols. Don't think too hard about it. It's like it could be that too.
I think honestly, I'm very happy with that type of reaction. We're living in a really confusing time with like mass information, constant. We are like in the era of algorithm, and sometimes I just want to create something simple that you just look at and like you're like, oh, a bird and a pencil, or like something like that. Like that's kind of funny, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just leaves a little bit of space to just wonder, and instead of trying to figure it out, I think there was like another something that I was watching where it was like talking about like Miles Davis music. It's like, are you gonna listen to a song and be like, yeah, but what are you trying to like say? Like, what does this mean? It's like, dude, it's jazz. Just like listen and just like enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that.
I've been reflecting on that theme as well, as far as like, rather than learning how to live, just live.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Please do.
Right. You're always looking for the next productivity hack or tip. Get more sleep and exercise more. How do you fit more in your schedule? And it's just, I've been saying, and I'm noticing more that I say, like when people are like, how are you? And I'm like, busy. I hate that. Like, I don't want to be. I don't want to be as busy.
You kind of have to be.
I know, and that comes from a place of privilege, like to be able to be busy. I fully acknowledge that. I also started noticing that I don't put my own things in a calendar, like things like this. Yeah, we're in the calendar, but let's work out, Vic. No, that's not in the calendar.
You deserve that. I hope you reconsider.
I have to start doing it because this is probably like the 3rd or 4th episode I've mentioned that. So I have to start doing that. Tell me about some of the earliest big gigs, big commissions that you received.
I'll talk about the first one, which was with Facebook. Okay, that was a huge one.
Facebook Chicago.
Yeah, they were opening their second office somewhere downtown, and I was approached by one of their curators. I honestly think this is what happened. I was in the residency group for Chicago Artists Coalition that year.
Okay.
2020, and I swear, this curator, she works for Facebook, and she's in charge of the whole Midwest region.
Yeah.
And she definitely typed in like Chicago artists. And of course, because I'm in Chicago Artists Coalition, in that group that year, I came up in that residency group. I was one of the few that had like illustration work. So I had no experience painting, let alone murals.
Wow.
I'm a printmaker and drawer, And so she asked me, do you want to try to make a proposal for one of the spaces that we're opening up in the office? And you say, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And luckily, because I do have connections to different Chicago artists, I knew of other artists that had done work for other office spaces here.
Yeah.
So I was able to ask them, like, hey, like, is this real, first? And two, like, I think this is a really important conversation to have, but talking about pricing with other artists, we need to talk about this. We need to be transparent about, like, how we're pricing and, like, especially when it comes to big companies, because
sometimes the clients will be transparent with you and be like, you should raise your budget. You should raise your proposal.
If you're lucky, you'll have a curator that's looking out for you. But sometimes it's like she has a certain amount in her budget, and if you fit into that, that's cool. Keep it moving. But I was able to ask other artists and ask for like, a reference of like, what can I charge, because they're leaving me open right now. And that was huge. So in that way, it was like a whole new lesson on how to make an invoice.
Yeah.
And then again, it was like, how do I make art that's going to fill this space and that will make a big company like Facebook happy?
Yeah.
Like, really, like, nothing too politically charged, nothing. It's for a reception room,
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. I just like kind of went in there. Once the proposal was approved, the first one was denied. She was like, you could do better. I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I did better, right? It was good. Sometimes you need your butt kicked.
What did you do to make it better?
I put more thought into it. Like I played it too safe the first round. I was like worried that I couldn't get too like whimsical with it.
Oh,
so it was like very mild.
Were they specific in their criticism?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was like, she had saw a quality in my drawing that she kept using the word surrealist. And so I was like, okay, you do want like a little flavor in here. So I was like, put it in, but not too much, And then, the design got approved. And then the next challenge is like, okay, I'm in the room. What do I do? Oh my God. I'm like YouTubing, like how to paint a mural.
Yeah.
I thought I got this projector. I was like, okay,
Right.
Projector was not bright enough.
Oh no.
Also, I was, there in the daytime, and there was like a lot of construction, like union workers walking around, and I'm like, whoa, there's elements here. I'm not just like
alone. Yeah.
In this peaceful space.
Oh.
But I've always been the type of person, like, throw me a challenge and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If I have to stay there 12, 14 hours, I'm gonna get it done.
Right.
Which is what I was told. I was given 2 weeks. After about almost the end of the first week, the people that were like managing me, they had let me know there was this thing called coronavirus going around, and it's kind of getting serious, because I was not consuming anything on my phone. I was like, do not mess this up. Like, you're in this room and finish it. You got 2 weeks. And then I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? I've been looking at a wall like for a whole week. And then like one day before we had the chat, I get on the train to go downtown to go paint. It's completely empty. It's like a Monday. And I'm like, this is weird.
The train's empty.
I was like, I think they're serious. I think they're serious about this coronavirus. And so I was like, okay. And I was like looking at the news at the point, and then I was like, yeah, something's happening. They gave me a talk. They're like, hey, just letting you know, this space might get shut down. So if you want to get paid in time, just like try to finish it as soon as possible. I was like, okay, whoa, I'll get it done. I got it done.
Okay.
Which is great. Right. But it was like, Yeah, I was there for over 12 hours a day, just
Sure.
like getting it done.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
you found a way.
And I did get paid on time. So
Good.
there was that. But sometimes I think you need situations where you're not rushed, but just like a little fire under your butt
pressure.
to just like not worry so much about like, I don't know how to do this. When the time crunch is there, it's just like, I'm doing this, right? No one told you like how to set up an EMT school. You figured it out because you had to do it.
Yeah.
Or even all this equipment here. Like, it wasn't like, here's a step-by-step manual of how to do this. Please follow it, and then you'll be successful.
No, yeah. Many resources, whether it's other people or YouTube University or lessons along the way.
Yeah, but it was your effort. Like, you were like, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because I have to.
Yeah.
Because that's what the situation I'm making.
It requires it, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, at least my perspective is like it's tough when you're working with a client like Facebook, but it's like it's not that serious. Like, to me, for what I'm doing, it's just like it's not that serious. So yeah. Speaking of proposals and budgets, like when one starts out, should they just be like, are we simply at the mercy of the client, or can we consider our needs, like rent and bills that we have to pay?
That's definitely a big factor.
Okay.
If you're lucky, when the client approaches you, they will flat out just say what's their budget, you know, and then you can decide if you want to work with that or not. Sometimes it's just like, hey, realistically, this is the complexity of the design, and this is how big of a space I can work with. And sometimes they're just leaving you kind of out in the open, and you're like, here's a number. And then they're like, I have had times where they're like kindly being like, we're going to go a different route, but we're going to reach out to you next time. But that's okay. Sometimes I think about it and it's like, I don't really want to do it for less. Like, you're a large company, and I don't want to undersell myself. Like, and I do have other things that I need to prioritize right now. And it's hard to just like bite the bullet and say, maybe next time.
Right.
You know?
At what point did you realize that the proposal is based on the scope of the project rather than the hours you're putting in? When are you putting value on your experience and wisdom and the scale of the project, you know, and you're moving away from an hourly rate?
I'd say probably like 3 years after all of
okay.
this, because it felt like I had a pretty substantial portfolio to say like, these are the clients I've worked with. This is my capacity as an individual. This is what I've able to like achieve.
Yeah.
So I want to work with people that respect that. I'm not just like your intern, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm also not willing to go back down to like, I'll take anything, you know? I have to like stand my ground and be like, this is who I am. And this is what I do, and this is what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I try to be reasonable. I'm not like, I need $1 million to draw you a picture, you know? For instance, like I have had big clients like Google, like Facebook, but I've also had someone that approached me from like Woodstock, Illinois last summer, who just is an owner of a gym. I think he opened his second gym, and he was just like, hey, I saw you on the news. I love your work, and I don't want TV screens in my gyms, but I want to give my community something exciting in the space. And he told me his budget, and I love that. Just as simple of like, I don't want TVs, like I want art. And then he took the effort to like find my website and reach out, you know, and I worked with him.
Okay.
And it wasn't like the super high paying gig, but it paid for my time.
Yeah. As long as you're happy with it. At the end of the day, right? As long as you're like, you're happy with it.
Yeah, it paid for my time, and it was a great experience to like working with someone like that, especially on a design.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any differences with the project with the Thompson Center?
Differences
in approach, in scale, and any of that with your first project?
That's my biggest mural. It's a whole city block.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But it's different in the sense it's a digital print.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
It's kind of, that was my first time like I'm doing a printing proof at this like industrial print press. It was so cool. And I think that one also, it was because it's digital, it's so much more hands off. So I'm kind of just like sending a file and then like.
So did you have help applying it to the like the scaffolding?
That was like that is hands off. Someone else is doing that.
Wow.
I love that in a sense because that was when it was first approached me. I was thinking like, whoa, how am I
gotta learn how to do that?
Yeah, which I'd be willing, but
yeah,
it was a digital project.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah.
And then, I in a previous episode, I didn't know the 94th floor was like, had kind of open airness to it.
Yeah. It was cold. It was cold some days. That was a really interesting one too. I was approached by the 360 Chicago team, and they had explained, they wanted something very Chicago, very local, very, I don't know, something neighborhoody. And it was really originally supposed to just be a floor mural, but I had seen the space and I was like, let me paint on the windows too. Like I have this whole idea now of what I want this space to look like. They were also saying like, we really want this place to be photogenic. This is a place where tourists come and we want people to interact with the space. So I was like thinking like, what is going to look like bright and nice in a background and that, so the floor, instead of a big mat and painting directly on the floor, I convinced them to order me like 200 tiles, deliver them in my home studio.
Did they just say yeah? Like, you got it?
I mean, as long as it was in the budget and it was like reasonable. And for me, I thought that made most sense because one, I'm not going to be on the floor, crouched over, like.
But each tile was hand painted?
Hand painted.
Okay, but it's still laborious.
Yeah, still laborious, but I could like sit and do it in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah.
Also during the colder months and prepare the whole floor during a time where like that room could not be painted in.
Well, imagine, Sistine Chapel, just like you're on your back on a scaffolding, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, some people do it, and I have a lot of respect for it. But when that project came, it was like I had an idea, and I specifically had to kind of like make it in a way where it's like physically possible. Cause I went in that room, it was cold. Like Chicago spring is not like warm, you know? So my idea was like, if we do this modular, we can have these things delivered to me and then we can bring them back to the space.
So smart.
So it was, thank you. But I also knew it had to be a pattern on the floor.
Okay.
This is a space that gets like millions of viewers or visitors every year. So there's a lot of like traffic and like damage that's going to get done on the floor whether you like it or not. So having something busy is like kind of what I wanted so that no matter what happened it would still look cool. You can still see a pattern of like checkered like Chicago stars. And then the windows, it was just like, for me, I just wanted to show a little bit more specific like content of Chicago neighborhoods instead of just providing like a fun floor.
Were there certain neighborhoods that stood out that you wanted to add on to the windows?
I definitely was trying to make a range of like south to north. So I had like, Lincoln Park to Little Village, Garfield Park. Just a range of, I was like also thinking about like when you go on the train and the different lines and just.
What do you see?
So things like that. But
you also previously said you have a love-hate thing with Chicago.
Yeah. Where did you find that?
Is that still a thing?
Is that I feel like that's the only type of love, real love you can have if you're like from Chicago. I love Chicago, but I also sometimes hate Chicago. Sorry. It's a love-hate. It's, it's a hard place to live. Like it's a hustle. It's a bustle.
I guess in what sense? Because what initially comes to mind is that Midwest hospitality. But what to you has been hard?
I think in the city it's just really fast paced. I think I noticed this more because my fiance actually is from a beach town, from San Diego, and he moved here to be with me, which is amazing. But it's kind of allowed me to see the city in a different lens.
Okay. Does he have a love-hate relationship?
He appreciates the city is what I'll say. Okay. I love the city, but any city is a lot of chaos. It's a lot of traffic. It's expensive. It's just, but there's also really great things because you have the, denseness of people and things going on. There's so many opportunities.
That's interesting. I mean, you've been to New York?
I have.
Right, a little bit more hustle and bustle.
It's a lot more. I can't be in New York for more than 3 or 4 days. Like
it's overstimulating.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like I know that train system. I'm still like, why can't I just call it the Red Line? What do you mean? Yeah, and then actually because I went to Korea last year, or last fall. Oh my God, Seoul is crazy.
Oh, okay.
Insane.
Yeah. I've only been to the airport, so.
If you take Times Square and then times it by like 8 and throw it around, there you go.
Okay.
You're in Seoul.
Yeah. Wow.
But I appreciate that. It's just like, whoa, this place is a living, breathing thing. You can feel it.
Yeah. Did your mom or parents like share anything or before you embarked on that journey to Korea?
Not really. I've always been the type of kid where it's like, if I want to do something, I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna ask you for money to do it, so I'm gonna do it. Yeah. They definitely just wanted me to be safe, and then
they weren't excited for you to see certain things or experience certain things.
I think they were excited, but I think it's a confusing thing that I think I don't even understand.
Huh. What do you mean? This desire to want to know this side?
Yeah, to go back and explore. Yeah. I think, especially as a kid that I didn't want to go to Korean school on Saturdays. I begged to drop out. I don't even really fluently always speak with them. Yeah. So they're all of a sudden you just want to go take a 14-hour flight and go see.
Oh, same. What about this? The uptick in Korean barbecue spots. This let's all go get Korean barbecue. Yeah, but I think they were really happy and proud that I was able to do that myself and experience it. But the conversations I had after I came back were kind of interesting. Oh wow. Yeah, I think there's some things my parents have not been back since they came here in the late '80s, and they don't have any interest in going back. Interesting. Yeah. They know that the South Korea they left, their home it's not the same. And based on what you experienced, would you agree? Yes and no. Yeah. One, for me, as a Korean American woman, I've never had the opportunity to be the majority. I've never been in a setting where I'm everybody looks like me. And everything I'm hearing, the background sounds of Korean speaking. Yeah. I just wanted that sensation. Yeah. How fast were you speaking Korean, fluently then? It happens when you need it. You just do it. Being immersed, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the shame, that's something that's held me back with Korean language. Okay. I think there's a lot more in there than that actually comes out because there's this barrier here. There's just shame. But yeah, when I was out there, it's kind of just did that go out the window? It has to. Yeah. When you're hungry, when you gotta use a bathroom, when you're trying to find a spot, you're just you just talk, And then also, I'm 30 now. Yeah. I'm there's it just doesn't look good being embarrassed to speak. I'm a grown woman. Yeah. I stand up straight and I do it the best I can. Did you meet anyone on that journey that helped alleviate or relinquish any of that shame further? And almost fulfill you with a sense of pride? I will say maybe my younger self, in a sense. Actually, my aunt in Korea, I was able to stay in my dad's childhood home. She made a dress. Yeah, so these are two different dance. Okay. So I ended up in Gwangju, which is kind of I'm going to say it's the Chicago of Korea. It's a busy city, but not New York City. So I ended up there. I really wanted to hang out with her because that's my mother's older sister. Okay. And she told me about her amazing sewing skills. Okay. And I was please, Rain, so we can just hang out inside. And I want to see your studio. I want you to show me your clothes and stuff. So I spent some time with her, and it was kind of fun talking with her because now we're using language about sewing, about fabric, about clothes, and I just love that. And even though I didn't catch everything, it was important for me to just keep going and also just listen to her and just you kind of understand what they're saying, maybe not really complex things, but you get it. Okay. And then from there, I went down to more the countryside where my parents are actually born and raised. This is
very countryside, like all farms. This is where I stayed with my aunt on my dad's side. So some magic happened where this was not even planned. Randomly, kind of like a few weeks before I left, we were able to make connection, and like they were able to organize a way for me to stay in that home and be connected to her. She was a character. She was fun. She speaks Korean really fast. And she's also a woman. She's an older woman that lives alone in the countryside.
Wow.
And she has 2 sons, not a daughter. So I think she was just like, oh my God, girl power. Let's like sleep over. Like yada, yada, yada. And I was like, whoa, we went from beginner Korean to like mega advanced. And now now we're talking about words that are around emotion or family and like, and drama, the complex, weird parts of life, you know. She's like talking about all this, a lot of deeper stuff, because, you know, I'm kind of the first.
Yeah, to go back, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it feels
was there a longing? Like, did she miss that community? She missed having family around?
I think so.
Of course, right?
Yeah, I think, there was a melancholy aspect to it, definitely. But I was just really grateful to be able to like know that house even exists, and that I got to sleep on that floor, and like, it was just magic. I don't know. Before all this happened, I always joked that like when my parents talk about their upbringing, it feels like this like fantasy story.
Oh. Because
Korea, we have to remember, was very like a poor country. Sometimes I feel, and then the boom happened. It feels like the stories of my parents actually align more with like my American friends, like their grandparents. For example, like my mom's first phone number in their home was 22. That's it.
In Korea?
22. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they had witnessed literally like electricity coming into their town and stuff. And yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
And they were not like a poor family, you know. Again, we had land, and they went to school. They were educated kids, so it felt like I was able to finally like see this dreamland that I like had this fake idea of, and it became real.
Did you hear of any stories about your parents from your aunt?
Oh my God, yeah. I guess my mom used to be a crybaby.
Hey!
Yeah.
I was like, do things make a little bit more sense?
Oh my God, yeah. You know, I was asking about my dad too. I was like, what is he like? And she's like, he's always quiet. So yeah, that was kind of fun. She brought me to all these spaces where they like went on field trips, for example, or like, this is the other home that you guys moved to, and you know, blah blah blah, was in high school. And yeah, I got to really see it all. She called it homework. I have a lot of homework for you. So
is there any part of your dad's older sister that wants to come over to the States at all, or as a visit? Or
I don't think so.
That's so interesting. It's like, despite this longing for family, it's like, not worth it. You know, it's like, what?
Yeah, they want my dad to come over there.
Oh, okay.
But at first he was gonna come with me, and then he was like, actually no. And that's complicated. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
Okay.
Also, I think he's afraid of like planes. I think this is what I'm getting at.
That's a real fear.
Yeah.
What was it like sharing the photos and videos of your trip with your parents then? Was there a curiosity or an interest in that?
Yeah.
Not as much as you'd hope, or?
No, they definitely wanted to see the photos and stuff, because I took very specific photos. I couldn't tell you exactly what they felt.
Isn't that interesting?
And I think that's okay.
Yeah, based on our earlier conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that was really special to me, my aunt had brought me up to this like little mountainy trail behind their old home. I guess it's somewhere my dad used to like go take his bike or like hike up, and like that was his hangout spot. And there's like a little Buddhist like a little shrine up. You like take this rope and like climb up there, and then there's these little stairs, and there's literally like a beautiful Buddhist shrine. And I guess my dad, he used to always hang out there, so I told myself I have to get up there. She's much older, so she was like, I'm gonna wait here and I'm gonna talk to my friend on the phone, and you can like do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So I went up there, and I grabbed 2 stones, and one was for me and one was for him, and My dad, I guess, cherishes that rock. So, because I know, like, I didn't want to get them a bunch of like souvenir crap, really. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, what would he really want? So I was trying to think of things like that.
Yeah. So, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, like, you know, with his desk area, he's got that rock.
Well, did that open up a conversation of like, yeah, I would go there pretty often, you know, like, did he elaborate on any of that stuff?
He told me he used to shoot rabbits up there.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't hear much from, my dad's a much quieter person, obviously.
Yeah.
We've been talking about my mom a lot.
Okay.
My dad is very quiet.
Okay.
He's always been like that. I also wondered, were you like this before, or was there something traumatic that happened to you when you moved here, and then it just, especially with the language barrier, you were just like, I'm the quiet guy now?
Did you ask him to write any of his experiences down?
No, and I should.
I wonder, you know, just because you're quiet, I wonder if he'd still be willing to write. You know?
I should. Yeah, I should. I think I'm a little bit more hesitant with that.
Yeah.
I think approaching my mom is different because she's much more like proficient in English. So I think we can talk about a little bit more complex things.
Yeah.
But sometimes with my dad, who's very much like a traditional Korean man, I think he blocks things for me because he understands I don't understand. He's like, you won't understand because you don't know Korean, you know?
Which could be just, you know, an excuse.
Yeah, true.
What if you gave him the permission to just write in Korean?
I should.
And
I'm going to do that.
You can get that translated.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. I should do that.
Just remove any excuse, you know?
Yeah.
Without pressing it too, you know, if you're like, nah, then, you know, don't push it, but...
I definitely should. But like in that home, I was able to see these like old photos I've never seen. And this is my aunt that married the oldest uncle. So traditionally, the oldest son will get all the stuff, like all the best land, all the family photos and stuff. It was like all in the home.
I see.
So I got to like flip around, and this is shocking, but like that was the first time I saw a picture of my parents' wedding.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't have an album?
They do not.
What?
But I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? She has everything. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, can I have some? And she was like, no, we have to keep it here.
Are you kidding
Your cousin's
me?
going to be, but then I was like, please. And then she was like, okay, here. She's like, don't tell anybody. I warmed up to her. I was like on my best behavior because I was like, I need to like stay connected.
Oh, and so in total, it was like a little over a week? I saw 10 reels. So yeah.
So the family side of my trip was about 10 days.
Okay.
And then I had a second part of my trip, which was actually on a guided Korean textile tour.
Yeah.
Also amazing experience.
And you got sponsored to go on that.
I did.
The trip in general, or just that tour?
The tour was the main part of the trip.
Okay.
So yes, it was sponsored by
That's amazing.
Chicago.
That's crazy.
DK's grant. Look into it. They funded it as a research trip. I had been on the wait list for like 2 years, and I finally got in. Whether or not I was going to pay for it, I was going to go. But luckily, my grant writing skills got me that grant. And
wait, how did you develop grant writing skills?
I took a class at Hyde Park Art Center.
Is that okay? Because I want to start a nonprofit, but I have no idea how to write grants.
You can look at, like, I don't know if they still teach it, but there was, I forgot my teacher's name, but he was a wonderful individual that actually was a grant writer for Hyde Park Art Center.
Okay.
And he just broke down every week of like, you know, how to write an artist statement or bio. And
I see.
It doesn't have to be art related, but just basically the language of grant writing, which I think is very specific. It's not just like writing a story or even writing a paper of some sort. You're asking for money, and you have to be very clear with your ideas.
Yeah.
And it's basically, this is how it goes. Hello, I need money for this project. This project's important because X, Y, and Z. If you give me the money for the project, this is what I'm going to do with the money.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you're lucky, it's like, I've gotten money before, and this is how I've viewed it. So I'm not just lying to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the textile tour.
I got connected to an artist named Youngmin Lee, who's I'm going to say like a professional quilt artist. Oh, wow. She specializes in like traditional Korean textile arts. And she hosts 2 groups every year.
Oh, wow.
It's a group of 10. Oh. She's intentionally always keeping it very small. And it's a very specialized tour that takes you to different galleries, museums, artists, studios, and just things related to fiber arts, like anything fabric related and traditional Korean like techniques.
Yeah.
So everything from indigo dyeing to this very specific weaving techniques of like old Korean clothes and quilting, obviously.
Did you get to share your picture of like your hangbok?
I did, yeah. So the group was amazing. This is what really made the trip. I was able to travel for 10 days to Seoul with a group of women that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And half of them were Korean Americans. Not all so different. I'm me. That we had someone from a Japanese Korean background, which I feel like is, and she was much older. So I was like, wow, your upbringing must have been like you are pachinko, you know? This is just like, it's crazy. She is, oh my God, I love her. She's like my fashion icon too. Lee, if you're listening, I love you. And we had someone that was a Korean adoptee. We had someone who was Korean American, but I think more like much older than me. You know, I was like maybe around their kids' age or a little older. And then half of them were just, I don't know, American women that really love quilting. And on the first day of the tour, I think one of the oldest women, she just looked at me. She's like, how did you find this? And how old are you? These quilt tours are usually just a bunch of old ladies.
I can't imagine that tour being easy to find. It's pretty specific,
Well, in this journey of making work that's about my Korean American identity, I've made a lot of effort to find other Korean American artists. And I'm very drawn to Korean American artists that are following techniques and trying to carry them over and you know, share them here in the States. So Young Min Lee like brought us to these amazing makers and spaces, and I finally got the lessons on like the Korea that I wanted to learn about outside of my family.
And like what were some of the lessons?
Honestly, just like old techniques of like, for instance, there's a sewing technique called seksunubi, and it's like a hand sewing technique that's used by just everyday people back in the day just to make sturdier fabric, but more decorative and beautiful. It's really time process, like time. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and it just makes beautiful products. I don't know how to explain. Just these things that are hard to find books on because I live in the States. They're not usually translated in English. So I brought like a whole suitcase just to bring back like fabric samples and books and just study.
So have you started to incorporate some of that, some of those skills into new work?
Kind of.
Yeah,
right now
just
I'm
playing
in this,
around with it?
Yeah, I think ever since I went to that trip, I'm feeling a departure from the type of work I've been making, and I'm a little bit more interested in getting away from my personal narrative and integrating more into like, what is the bigger picture I'm part of? I think as I get older also, I'm a little bit less interested in talking about myself. I'm interested in maybe adding to the effort of like carrying on traditions. So especially with sewing, it's like sewing has always been in my life, and there's just certain really beautiful techniques, I think, with Korean traditional textile techniques that I want to start incorporating more. But right now I do have a solo show, and I'm like finishing up, and it feels like after that I kind of want to take some space to breathe and give my practice space to change and grow. Can you share what pieces can be seen at this solo show? Yeah, so a lot of my like textile pieces, for instance, the hanbok that's created with all the dry cleaning tags that are handwritten.
Is that going to be like hung or just mounted on the wall, or how does that?
I'm going to have that hung up. I have 3 hanboks I've made with. With one is actually almost done. One is the newer one that I haven't shown. It's very much inspired by the American flag. It was just an image I needed to make in my head. There's a lot of the textile pieces that I have that are framed in like the archival book trays, basically. Basically almost everything on my website. I recently did sell some pieces, so I can't show those because they're gone. But all in a line.
So at the moment, do you have more wall space that you're like, I gotta finish some pieces in order to put it up in the solo show?
Well, I was given the like space to have 25 to 50 pieces. So for me, I'm like, all right, finish all the loose ends and have the opportunity to share it and have almost kind of like I don't want to say goodbye, but just like an opportunity to look at it in a space alone, photograph it, document it, and just like absorb it.
Kind of closure in a way.
Yeah, and
personally, at least for you. Right?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of closure. I don't want to spend my whole life making the same thing. Is what I'll say.
You're evolving.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a nice way to wrap up this section of my body of work. Damn. And I there are some things I learned in Korea that I'm like, I kind of just want to focus on these books and this type of stuff. Especially with like anything related to the hanbok, the traditional Korean garments. There's something about clothes and sewing that's just like always in my life. And yeah, so I'm not going to make any promises of what that's going to look like, but I will say I just want a place to play and kind of have a fresh slate again.
Okay. Yeah. And none of your murals will be there in the solo show?
No. They did ask me, though, to make a painting, a custom painting, because they did try to get me to do a mural, but it was just kind of...
You're pretty clear on this separation.
I know. Yeah. They did ask me to make a custom like painting, so I will be doing a live painting event actually, and the prompt is, what does it mean to be Asian American?
Okay.
So in this way, I'll be responding to that question with my like more painter mural like project, and that painting will be acquired in their permanent collection and hang up in their department.
What an honor!
Yeah. So in that way, I'm happy they did it this way because it makes it approachable for me to kind of combine these two practices now.
When having this opportunity for a gallery, is it pretty collaborative?
It has been.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say more so on like the events that work around the exhibition.
Okay.
With the exhibition, it was just pretty clear, hey, this artist has enough body of work and is in a line with the type of artist we're looking for this session. Let's invite her. So I have the work, but I was like, I want to do a film screening, and I want to do a bookmaking workshop. So just to share a little bit more hands-on of myself with that community.
Can you share where and when?
Yeah, so this is going to be with Union Art Gallery. That is with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Oh, wow,
it's about an hour and a half away from Chicago,
not bad.
if you're interested. The opening is going to be April 25th, and then we have another event. I have a couple other events around that, and you can check my website out and follow my newsletter.
How long is it open for? A month or?
That'll be until May 9th, so it's kind of a shorter exhibition.
Oh,
but yeah.
April 25th to May 9th.
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm sure you'll be back. I feel like I caught you in like a transition period, but it's really cool to hear that, and wish you the best of luck in exploring this next phase. Before we hop off, is there anything else you'd like to share or put out there?
Just thank you for this, spending the time.
This was a real conversation.
Yeah, no, I think everything you asked me was really genuine, and I appreciate you, and check me out, katiechung.com.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.